My daughter forgot to hang up the phone. I heard everything. My dad runs some pathetic little repair shop in his garage. It's so embarrassing when people ask what my father does for work. I tell them he's in business, but really he just fixes old junk. I didn't say anything, but at that moment, something inside me broke. 6 months later, she walked into work expecting another normal day at Morrison Tech Solutions. Her new boss was waiting in the conference room, and when she saw who it was, she couldn't breathe. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The phone call wasn't meant for me to hear. My daughter Jessica had pocket-dialed me while talking to her boyfriend outside the fancy restaurant where they just finished dinner. I was in my garage workshop, surrounded by the pathetic little repair shop that had put her through college, when her voice came through my phone speaker crystal clear. "I can't believe you want to meet my parents," Jessica was saying, and I could hear the anxiety in her voice. "My mom's okay, she works part-time at the library, but my dad, God, Marcus, it's so embarrassing." I set down the motherboard I'd been repairing and listened with growing dread. "What's wrong with your dad?" came a male voice I didn't recognize. "He runs some pathetic little repair shop in his garage, fixes computers and phones and old electronics." It's like having a glorified janitor for a father. When people at work ask what he does, I tell them he's in business, but really he just fixes other people's broken junk. The screwdriver slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the concrete floor. "That doesn't sound so bad," the boyfriend said. "At least he works hard." "Marcus, you don't understand. I work at Morrison Tech Solutions. We handle corporate IT for million-dollar companies. My colleagues have parents who are doctors, lawyers, executives, and my dad sits in a garage all day with a soldering iron." "But he raised you, put you through school, with community college and state university money. Do you know how humiliating it is to tell people I went to state while everyone else went to Stanford or MIT?" My dad kept saying we couldn't afford better, but maybe if he'd had real ambitions instead of being satisfied with fixing broken computers. I sank into my work chair, staring at the neat rows of tools I'd organized over 20 years of building electronic solutions from nothing. The same tools that had paid for Jessica's degree, her car, her apartment deposit when she got the job she was now ashamed to admit her father had made possible. "I love him," Jessica continued, her voice softening slightly. "But I can't have my boss or clients meeting a guy who shows up with grease under his fingernails talking about circuit boards. It would ruin my professional image." "So what do you want to do?" "Keep them separate. You'll meet my mom at family dinners, but Dad, I'll make excuses. Say he's busy, traveling for work, whatever. I've worked too hard to build my reputation at Morrison to have it destroyed by my father's limitations." The call ended abruptly, leaving me alone in my garage with the sound of fluorescent lights humming overhead and the weight of my daughter's shame crushing down on me. 20 years. 20 years I'd built electronic solutions from a card table in this garage, working 18-hour days to establish the most trusted repair service in 3 counties. 20 years of emergency calls at midnight, weekend work, holidays spent fixing critical systems so businesses could stay operational. I pulled out my laptop and opened the financial software I designed myself to track my business. The numbers on the screen told a different story than Jessica's pathetic little repair shop. Electronic Solutions, $847,000 in annual revenue. Contracts with 12 major corporations, 6 hospitals, 3 school districts, and the county government. A client list that read like a who's who of regional business, all trusting their critical technology to the man whose daughter was ashamed to admit he existed. But Jessica didn't know about the corporate contracts. She'd never asked about my business beyond complaining that it wasn't prestigious enough. She saw the garage workshop and assumed that's where my ambitions had died, never realizing it was where they'd been born. I closed the laptop and walked to my filing cabinet, pulling out a folder I'd kept locked away for 5 years. Morrison Tech Solutions, the company where Jessica worked, the company whose corporate IT infrastructure I'd been quietly maintaining through a series of subcontracts and shell companies. Morrison thought they were getting their technical support from Advanced Systems Integration, a corporate entity I'd created to handle larger clients who wanted to deal with a real company instead of a guy in a garage. They had no idea that Advanced Systems Integration was a one-man operation run by the same person whose daughter fixed their printers and managed their email servers. The irony was suffocating. Jessica worked for a company that wouldn't exist without my expertise, taking credit for systems I'd designed, troubleshooting problems I solved remotely, all while being embarrassed that her father just fixed broken junk. I sat in my garage until 3 a.m. that night, staring at acquisition papers I'd had my attorney prepare years ago but never acted upon. Morrison Tech Solutions was profitable but poorly managed, growing too fast without proper infrastructure, hemorrhaging money on outsourced IT costs they didn't understand. I could buy them, cash, tomorrow if I wanted to. The question was whether I should. The next morning, I called my attorney, Patricia Williams, a woman who'd handled my business legal needs for 15 years and understood exactly what electronic solutions had become. Michael, you want to buy Morrison Tech Solutions. That's a significant acquisition. What's driving this decision? I told her about the phone call, about Jessica's shame, about 20 years of building something my daughter saw as an embarrassment rather than an achievement. This seems personal, Michael. Are you sure you want to mix business with family emotions? Patricia, I've spent 2 decades quietly supporting that company through subcontracts. I know their systems better than their own IT staff. This isn't emotional, it's strategic. And Jessica works there. Jessica works there and is ashamed of the father whose expertise keeps her employer operational. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. What's your end game here? Fire her. Embarrass her publicly. I don't want to fire her. I want to teach her that success comes in forms she's never bothered to recognize. We spent 3 hours reviewing Morrison's financials, corporate structure, and acquisition possibilities. The company was privately held by Robert Morrison, a man in his 60s who'd been talking about retirement for years but couldn't find a suitable buyer who understood the technical complexities of his business. I can approach Morrison informally, Patricia suggested. Feel out his interest in selling without mentioning your identity initially. If he's receptive, we'll structure a deal. Do it, but I want this kept completely confidential until the sale is final. Michael, this is a $12 million acquisition. Are you certain you want to spend that much to prove a point to your daughter? It's not about proving a point. It's about showing her what she never bothered to see. 3 days later, Patricia called with unexpected news. Morrison is very interested in selling. Apparently, he's been looking for an exit strategy for 2 years but couldn't find anyone with the technical expertise to maintain his corporate relationships. When I mentioned that my client had extensive experience with Morrison's existing systems, he practically begged for a meeting. He doesn't know it's me. I told him my client prefers to remain anonymous until terms are negotiated, which is standard for acquisitions of this size. He's agreed to preliminary discussions. The meeting was set for the following Monday at Morrison's downtown offices, the same building where Jessica reported to work every day, completely unaware that her embarrassing father was about to become her boss. I spent the weekend preparing, reviewing 5 years of Morrison's technical documentation, studying their client relationships, analyzing the systems I'd built and maintained without them realizing I was their primary support infrastructure. Morrison Tech Solutions occupied 3 floors of a gleaming downtown building, all glass and steel and modern furniture designed to impress clients who wanted their IT services to look as sophisticated as their business operations. Jessica's desk was on the 2nd floor, in an open workspace filled with young professionals who dressed like they were auditioning for corporate magazine covers. I watched her through the elevator windows as Patricia, and I went to the 3rd floor for our meeting with Robert Morrison. Mr. Chen, Morrison stood to shake my hand, using the alias Patricia had created for the acquisition negotiations. Thank you for your interest in Morrison Tech Solutions. Patricia tells me you have extensive experience with our technical systems. Morrison was exactly what I'd expected, a smooth businessman who understood profits but relied entirely on his technical staff for actual expertise. He'd built a successful company by hiring competent people and staying out of their way, but he'd never understood the underlying technology that made his business possible. I've been working with your systems for several years, I said, which was technically true. I'm familiar with your client base, your infrastructure, and your operational challenges. Excellent. As Patricia mentioned, I've been looking for an exit strategy. I'm 64 years old, and frankly, the technical aspects of this business are beyond me. I need a buyer who can maintain our client relationships and continue our growth trajectory. We spent 2 hours reviewing Morrison's operations, client contracts, and financial projections. Everything I'd suspected was confirmed. They were a successful company built on technology they didn't fully understand, outsourcing their most critical functions to contractors like me while charging premium prices for services they couldn't actually provide internally. There is one thing, Morrison said as our meeting concluded. Our success depends heavily on our relationship with Advanced Systems Integration. They handle our most complex technical challenges, and honestly, without them we'd be lost. Any acquisition would need to ensure continuity of that partnership. I managed to keep a straight face. Advanced Systems Integration. Yes, I'm familiar with their work. Very impressive operation. The owner is something of a mystery. We've never met face to face, always communicated through intermediaries. But his technical expertise is extraordinary. He saved us millions in operational costs over the years. I'm sure we can maintain that relationship, I said, which was perhaps the most honest statement of the entire meeting. Patricia and Morrison spent the following week negotiating terms while I watched Jessica from a distance, studying the daily routine of the daughter who was ashamed of my pathetic little repair shop. She was good at her job, I had to admit, organized, professional, well-liked by colleagues and clients. She'd inherited my attention to detail and problem-solving skills, even if she refused to acknowledge where those abilities had come from. But I also noticed things that troubled me. The way she dismissed support staff who didn't meet her standards of professionalism. The casual comments about clients who couldn't afford premium services. The subtle condescension toward anyone who worked with their hands rather than their computers. She'd learned to be ashamed of blue-collar work, and that shame had infected her perspective on everyone who hadn't achieved her level of white-collar respectability. The acquisition was finalized on a Thursday afternoon. Morrison Tech Solutions now belonged to Michael Harrison, my real name, not the alias I'd used during negotiations. Patricia had structured the deal to reveal my identity only after all contracts were signed and filed. Morrison nearly choked on his coffee when Patricia handed him the final documents showing the actual buyer. Michael Harrison, the owner of Electronic Solutions, but that's just a small repair shop that operates under several corporate entities, including Advanced Systems Integration, Patricia explained smoothly. Michael has been your primary technical contractor for 5 years. He's probably the only person in the region who fully understands your operational infrastructure. Morrison stared at the documents, then at me, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and finally something approaching awe. Your Advanced Systems Integration, the mystery expert who's been solving our impossible problems. Among other business entities, yes. But your daughter works here. Jessica Harrison. She said her father ran a small repair business. Jessica sees what she chooses to see. She's never asked about the scope of my operations. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Are you planning to fire her? I'm planning to teach her something about the business she thinks she understands. The transition meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. All Morrison Tech Solutions employees would gather in the main conference room to meet their new owner and learn about upcoming changes to company operations. Jessica had no idea what was coming. She'd mentioned over dinner that weekend that Morrison was selling the company, complaining about uncertainty and wondering whether the new owner would appreciate her contributions. I hope it's someone who understands technology, she said, cutting her steak with precise movements. The last thing we need is some businessman who doesn't understand what we do. What do you do exactly? I asked, genuinely curious about her perspective on her role. I manage client relationships, troubleshoot their IT problems, coordinate with our technical contractors. It's complex work that requires real expertise. And who are these technical contractors? Various companies. Advanced Systems Integration handles our biggest challenges, but we use several specialists depending on the situation. I nodded, filing away her ignorance of who actually solved the problems she took credit for managing. Monday morning arrived with the crisp clarity of Pacific Northwest autumn. I dressed carefully in my best suit, not the work clothes Jessica found so embarrassing, but the business attire I wore for important client meetings and corporate presentations. Patricia met me in the Morrison building lobby at 9:45 a.m. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 10:00, giving me 15 minutes to prepare for what would either be the most important conversation of my daughter's professional life or the beginning of a family rift that might never heal. Are you ready for this? Patricia asked as we rode the elevator to the 3rd floor. I've been ready for 20 years. The conference room was packed with Morrison's 47 employees, all chattering nervously about meeting their new boss. Jessica sat in the front row, looking professional and confident in a navy blue blazer I'd helped pay for with profits from my pathetic little repair shop. Robert Morrison stood at the front of the room, preparing to make introductions he clearly found awkward given what he'd learned about my identity. Ladies and gentlemen, Morrison began, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. I want to thank you all for the excellent work you've done building Morrison Tech Solutions into the success it is today. As you know, I've decided to retire and sell the company to someone who can take it to the next level. Nods and polite applause around the room. Jessica looked attentive and engaged, probably hoping to make a good impression on the new owner. Our new owner brings extensive technical expertise and deep understanding of our operations. In fact, he's been working with our systems for years through various contractor relationships. Please welcome Michael Harrison, owner of Electronic Solutions and several related technology companies. I walked to the front of the room, watching faces as employees processed the introduction. Most looked politely interested. A few seemed to recognize my name from contractor communications. Jessica looked confused, like she'd heard something familiar but couldn't place it. Then our eyes met, and I watched understanding dawn on her face like a sunrise over a landscape of devastation. "Hi, everyone," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "I'm Michael Harrison, and I'm excited to be working with all of you to continue Morrison Tech Solutions' growth and success." Jessica's face had gone completely white. She gripped her chair arms so tightly her knuckles showed, her mouth opening and closing without sound. "Many of you have been working with my technology solutions for years without realizing it. Electronic solutions, advanced systems integration, and several other contractor companies you've partnered with are all part of my business operations." Murmurs around the room as employees began connecting dots they'd never considered before. "I want to assure everyone that there will be no major operational changes. Your jobs are secure, your projects will continue, and your client relationships remain our top priority." I paused, looking directly at Jessica, whose face was now cycling through shock, horror, and dawning realization of what this meant for everything she'd said about her father's limitations. "I believe in promoting from within and recognizing talent wherever it exists. Some of you have been working directly with my systems and solutions for years. You understand their value and their complexity. That experience will be invaluable as we move forward." Jessica raised her hand on trembling fingers. "Mr. Harrison, Michael, I have a question about contractor relationships." The room was perfectly quiet, everyone sensing undercurrents they didn't understand. "Yes, Jessica. Advanced systems integration. They've been our primary technical contractor for 5 years. Will that relationship continue?" "Absolutely. In fact, it will be more integrated than ever, since advanced systems integration is one of my companies. We'll have direct access to their expertise without the communication delays we've experienced in the past." Jessica's face showed she was beginning to understand the full scope of what she'd never bothered to learn about her father's business. "Are there questions about the transition process?" I asked the room. A young programmer named David raised his hand. "Will Electronic Solutions be handling more of our technical support directly?" "Electronic Solutions has been handling much of your technical support indirectly for years. Now, we'll simply be more transparent about those relationships." More murmurs as employees realized they'd been interacting with my work without knowing it. "What about growth opportunities?" asked Sarah, one of the senior account managers. "We'll be expanding services significantly. Electronic Solutions has capabilities that Morrison Tech Solutions has never offered directly to clients. We'll be able to provide comprehensive technology solutions instead of just coordinating with outside contractors." The meeting continued for another 30 minutes, covering transition timelines, reporting structures, and operational procedures. Jessica sat frozen in her chair, saying nothing, her face showing the complete reconstruction of everything she thought she knew about her father's career. After the meeting ended and employees filed out chattering about the changes, Jessica remained in her seat until we were alone in the conference room. "Dad," her voice came out as a whisper. "Hi, sweetheart. You bought my company." "I bought Morrison Tech Solutions, yes. Your advanced systems integration. The contractor we all thought was some mysterious tech genius. Among other things." Jessica stared at me with growing horror. "Oh God, the phone call. You heard everything I said about your pathetic little repair shop." "I heard it." Tears started flowing down her cheeks, her professional composure finally cracking. Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I didn't understand. What didn't you understand, Jessica? How big your business is, how successful you are, how much Morrison depends on your work. I sat down across from her, studying my daughter's face as she tried to process the magnitude of her miscalculation. Is that what you think this is about? The size of my business? Isn't it? Jessica, for 20 years I've built electronic solutions into something that supports dozens of major companies across 3 states. But you never asked about the scope of my work. You saw a garage workshop and decided that's where my ambitions ended. You never talked about corporate clients or big contracts. You never asked. Every time I mentioned work, you changed the subject or made comments about how I should upgrade to a real office. Jessica wiped her eyes with tissues from the conference room table. I was wrong. I see that now. Your business is huge. My business is exactly what it's always been. The only thing that's changed is your perception of it. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed her electronic solutions website, complete with client testimonials, service descriptions, and case studies spanning 15 years of corporate technology solutions. This has been online since 2010. Our client list, our capabilities, our annual revenue, it's all been publicly available. You never looked. Jessica scrolled through pages of information about the company she dismissed as a pathetic little repair shop, her face showing increasing devastation as she realized the scope of her ignorance. Dad, I feel like such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're a smart, capable professional who made assumptions without gathering information. But why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me think you just fixed computers in the garage? Because I wanted you to value the work itself, not just its financial success. I wanted you to respect problem-solving and technical expertise and helping people, regardless of whether it happened in a garage or a glass office building. Jessica set down my phone and looked around the conference room where she just learned her father was her new boss. What happens now? Now you continue doing the excellent work you've been doing. You manage client relationships, coordinate technical solutions, and help Morrison Tech Solutions continue growing. But working for my dad, working for the owner of Electronic Solutions, who happens to be your father, this doesn't change your professional responsibilities or capabilities. Jessica was quiet for several minutes, processing the complete reversal of everything she'd believed about her career and family. Dad, can I ask you something? When you heard that phone call, when I said all those horrible things about being embarrassed by your work, why didn't you just tell me the truth about how successful you are? Because success isn't measured only in revenue or office buildings or job titles. I wanted you to learn that lesson yourself. And if I hadn't learned it, then you'd have continued being ashamed of work that deserves respect, regardless of where it happens or how much money it makes. Jessica started crying again, harder this time. I'm such a terrible daughter. You're a daughter who learned some painful lessons about judgment and assumptions. That doesn't make you terrible, it makes you human. The conversation continued for another hour as Jessica asked questions about electronic solutions, advanced systems integration, and the other companies I'd built, while she was busy being embarrassed by my limitations. She learned that her father employed 12 people across multiple business entities. That Electronic Solutions had been featured in technology trade publications as one of the region's most innovative small businesses. That the garage workshop, she found so embarrassing was actually a prototype development lab where I created custom solutions for Fortune 500 companies. Most importantly, she learned that success had never been about impressing her colleagues or fitting their definition of professional respectability. Dad, I want to make this right somehow. You can start by doing your job and doing it well. Morrison Tech Solutions is a good company with excellent employees. Help me make it better. What if people find out you're my father? What if they think I only have this job because of family connections? Do you think you only have this job because of family connections? Jessica considered the question seriously. No, I earned this position. I'm good at what I do. Then prove it every day through your work, not through hiding your family relationships. Over the following weeks, Jessica threw herself into her job with renewed energy and purpose. She volunteered for additional projects, spent extra time understanding the technical aspects of our services, and began asking questions about electronic solutions capabilities that she'd never bothered to ask before. The other employees quickly learned that Michael Harrison was Jessica's father, but her professional competence spoke for itself. If anything, people were impressed that she'd earned her position on merit without relying on family connections. 3 months after the acquisition, Morrison Tech Solutions had integrated fully with Electronic Solutions' expanded service offerings. Revenue increased by 40%, as we began offering comprehensive technology solutions, instead of just coordinating with outside contractors. Jessica was promoted to Senior Account Manager, a position she'd earned through excellent performance and deep understanding of our integrated service capabilities. One evening, she stayed late to help troubleshoot a client emergency, working alongside me in the downtown office that had replaced my embarrassing garage workshop as her workplace. Dad, can I tell you something? Of course. I used to be embarrassed when people asked what my father did for work. Now I'm proud to tell them that my dad built one of the most successful technology companies in the region. That's nice to hear, sweetheart. But I've realized something else. I should have been proud all along. Not because of how much money you made, but because of how hard you worked and how much you helped people. I looked up from the server configuration I was updating. What made you realize that? Last week, Mrs. Patterson from the elementary school called to thank us for fixing their computer lab. She said her students were so excited to have working computers again, and she couldn't afford to replace them. She was crying because she was so grateful. And I realized that's what you've been doing for 20 years. Helping people solve problems they couldn't solve themselves, making it possible for businesses and schools and hospitals to keep operating when their technology failed. Jessica paused, choosing her words carefully. The size of your business is impressive, Dad. But what's really impressive is that you built it by caring about doing good work, not just making money. 6 months after becoming Jessica's boss, I received a package at the office addressed to Michael Harrison, Electronic Solutions. Inside was a wooden plaque that Jessica had made in a woodworking class she'd started taking on weekends. The plaque read, "World's best dad not because he's rich, but because he taught me that all honest work deserves respect." Below that, in smaller letters, "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand." I hung the plaque on my office wall, right next to the framed photo of my first Electronic Solutions business license from 20 years ago. Sometimes employees ask about it, and I tell them it's a gift from someone who learned an important lesson about not judging people by their workspace or their job title. Jessica and I work together every day now, building something bigger than either Electronic Solutions or Morrison Tech Solutions could have been separately. She brings skills I'd never developed: client relations, business strategy, professional presentation. I bring technical expertise and the kind of problem-solving experience that can only be earned through decades of fixing broken junk. Her boyfriend Marcus finally met me at a company barbecue, where Jessica introduced me as my dad, who owns electronic solutions and is basically a technology genius, even if he still works on computers in his garage sometimes. Marcus seemed appropriately impressed, though Jessica later told him the whole story about her phone call and the lessons she'd learned about assumptions and family pride. "What did he say?" I asked. "He said any woman who could admit she was wrong and learn from it was someone he wanted to marry." They're engaged now, planning a wedding that will be paid for with profits from the pathetic little repair shop that became a multi-million-dollar technology company. During the engagement party, Jessica gave a speech thanking the people who'd supported her throughout her career. She ended by looking directly at me. "Most of all, I want to thank my dad, who taught me that success isn't about impressing other people. It's about doing work that matters and helping people solve problems." "Dad, I'm proud to be your daughter, and I'm proud to work for Electronic Solutions. Thank you for showing me that real expertise doesn't need fancy offices or impressive titles to change the world." The applause was nice, but what mattered more was seeing Jessica finally understand what I'd been trying to teach her for 20 years, that the value of work lies in the problems it solves and the people it helps, not in how prestigious it looks to outsiders. Today, Electronic Solutions operates from both the original garage workshop and a downtown office building. Jessica manages our corporate accounts, while I continue developing custom solutions and training the next generation of technology professionals. We've hired several recent graduates who remind me of Jessica when she was starting out smart, ambitious, and sometimes a little too concerned with how their work appears to others. I try to teach them what I taught my daughter, that expertise speaks for itself, regardless of where you practice it. And sometimes, when we're working late on a particularly challenging problem, Jessica will look around our state-of-the-art office and smile. "You know what, Dad? I think I actually miss the garage sometimes." There was something honest about solving problems with just tools and expertise, without worrying about impressing anyone. "The garage is still there, sweetheart. We can work there anytime you want." "Maybe this weekend. I'd like to learn more about circuit board repair." "I'd be honored to teach you." Because in the end, that's what this was always about, not proving how successful I was, but teaching my daughter that all meaningful work deserves respect, whether it happens in a garage or a glass office building. The location never mattered. The pride in craftsmanship always did. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To everyone listening, I challenge you to examine your own assumptions about success and professional respectability. Sometimes the people we underestimate are building something extraordinary right in front of us, and the only thing stopping us from seeing it is our own prejudice about what success should look like. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.